Hello, everyone. I'm Erika Ellis from Living Joyfully, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Anna Brown and Pamela Rickia. Hello to you both.
Hello.
Today, we're going to be talking about building confidence, which was a really interesting topic of conversation on the network recently. And so I'm really excited to dive into that. But first, I want to encourage you to check out our online shop where you can find more information about joining the Living Joyfully Network, a selection of unschooling and relationship courses, Pam's books about unschooling, and a variety of coaching options. The shop has resources and support for every stage of your journey. You can find the link in the show notes, or you can visit livingjoyfullyshop.com. And now, Pam, would you like to get us started with our conversation?
Sure. I am excited to dive into this because confidence is like an interesting topic and to see where it comes from and how we can build it and how it kind of comes together. Because there are actually many different aspects to building our confidence, right? So I thought I would start with one shift that I found really fundamental to building my confidence, and that was letting go of comparisons. Because especially when we first came to unschooling, it was really easy to compare myself and my family to others and kind of find myself wanting. And what would happen each and every time is it would kind of just send me spinning, right? Questioning my choice. It's like, why are we doing this? And undermining my confidence in things working out, right? So, as I came to notice that pattern, I dug a bit deeper and soon realized that comparing myself or my kids to other people just kind of invites judgment into the conversations that I'm having with myself, right? As I'm processing and trying to figure things out. It ended up being more noise in my head that distracted me and even sometimes drowned out my own thoughts and perspectives. Like they could get really loud. And I learned, I noticed, I know that my brain needs some time and some space to think things through. I want to feel my feelings, want to understand my emotions, like all those pieces. And I found I wasn't getting to the processing pieces. I wasn't developing that deeper level of self awareness when I was staying stuck at that more superficial level of comparing myself to others and then just trying to fix those differences, right? That was very surface level. Oh, like, here's what they're doing, and I feel I'm not doing, so I should do that thing, right? There wasn't a lot of learning in there for me. And I came to see that part of building confidence in myself is better understanding myself. So that little interesting nuance for me is that it's not about forever shutting out what others might share with me. Like at first, it just feels like judgment because I'm noticing, right? Um, but what I found in the longer run was that it was more about recognizing that what they're sharing with me is merely information. I didn't have to take that in as judgment. I didn't have to compare myself immediately. I could just see what it was. Because so often, as we've talked about before, that kind of information often tells us more about them than it tells us about us. And that's that pendulum swing we have talked about before as well. At first, we sometimes need to kind of swing all the way to the other side, to spend some quiet time without other voices so that we can start to more clearly hear our own. And when I think back, I definitely remember that when the kids left school, we pretty much cocooned as a whole family, basically, for about 6 months. It was really helpful for me to remove myself from those outside voices for a while when I was so busy learning so much about unschooling, learning about my kids, learning about myself. Because I noticed that when others expressed confusion, I immediately leapt to comparing myself and my kids to them. And I immediately felt defensive. And I didn't yet have the language to express our new direction with any confidence, right? So letting go of comparisons with others really was a big first step for me on the way to building confidence in the whole shebang.
and all the things.
All the
Right. And
things.
I think it's so valuable to spend some time here around thinking about what confidence looks like and feels like and how we can get there and cultivate it, because it really does change how you move through the world. When you're feeling confident about your relationships, about your situation, about the decisions that you're making, it just doesn't invite all of that. Like it just doesn't invite it all in. And so I think it really changes our experience. So it's worth kind of digging in. So I'm glad we're doing that. And I think comparison is such a great place to start because if we think about it, that's so external, right? It's, and like you said, surface level. Like whatever we're seeing from other people is a tiny slice of their life, often what they're choosing to put on Instagram, or even if it's what they're choosing to tell the story at Christmas. It's like it's very surface level. It's cultivated to like create an image. And that's great because that I love them writing their story and feeling good about what's working for them. So this is not in there's no critique about that. It's just me recognizing, oh, okay, that's what's happening for them. That's interesting for them. That's what's going on. But also knowing it's not the whole story. But what I can do is focus in on my kids and see what's happening here. What do we love? What's going on for us? And it really changes that piece because if I'm out looking and comparing, I actually really am not present with my kids or with what's happening in my life and in our home. And so that was the first thing for me realizing just I can almost energetically feel it pulling me away from actually where I want to be, which is present, where I wanted to be at the time, present with my kids and looking at our life and enriching our life. So I think I do love that we're starting, with that letting go of comparison piece.
Yeah, I love this topic as a whole, this building confidence. I feel like it was interesting on the network to see like people noticing like, oh, it's that lack of confidence that's really
Yeah.
causing a lot of kind of the issues that are coming up in their unschooling lives. When you have that feeling of like, I have to do things like this, and then, oh, but I should be doing this, and just kind of flailing around with this kind of decision making of like, oh no, like we're doing it wrong. We need to do it differently. It's that lack of confidence. And so the letting go of comparisons is such a great little place to start looking, um, just because people are so different. And so I really think, at the beginning of my unschooling journey, I did not have that so clearly in my mind of like this idea of people are different. But that's such a huge paradigm shift that I think would have helped me with this earlier on if I had only kind of understood that part, because comparison doesn't really make sense anymore once you realize how different people are. And so what works for one person won't work for another person. And so, right, then when we're looking at what other people are doing, it's just that information. It's just like, okay, there's one thing that's possible to do and see how it's working for them or not working for them. But right, it has nothing to do with me, my kids, our family, like what's going on with us. And so once we can tune in more to what's true of my kids, what's true of me, and really like start making decisions that make sense to me rather than trying to copy the decisions that someone else made that made sense to them, it's like all of a sudden that confidence starts building because it's like, okay, I'm listening, like this makes more sense. It's not just like, following these steps that kind of logically don't make sense to my brain. And so yeah, I just love that. And just remembering like what you were saying, Anna, like what we're seeing of other people is also just one story of their lives. That's not the whole picture. And so yeah, that comparison it can really kind of derail us along the path. And so yeah, I love the reminder to let go of that.
Yeah, I love what you said there about it just makes sense. And I would even argue that it's easier because I think if we're trying to do something that works for someone else, we kind of feel like this is hard. This is not flowing. Why is this? Why are we getting resistance here? What is happening? My kids don't want to do that, or this is not happening. But when you're really tuned in and doing what works for you, it's like, oh, this feels easy. This feels fun. This is, yes, we're still going to have our regular bumps, but it's not, I don't know, going against the flow. And I think, something else I think that's a part of this is a trust, right? A trust in ourselves, a trust in our children, a trust in the decisions that we're making, so that when we have that really innate trust, we are confident. We project that confidence outside of ourselves. And I think, when we can think about how do we build that trust, a lot of that is really just being with our kids, just seeing what they're doing, really bringing in like what's happening here. And look, they are learning, they are growing, we are improving our relationships, we are getting through hurdles. And I think one piece of this I want to say that I think happens more at the beginning of the journey and we kind of get there is sometimes we're like trusting in our decision. Like, I know I've made the right decision and now everything's going to be great. I've pulled my kids out of school or I've whatever change I've made and now it's going to be great. And it's like, no, it's not exactly that. Like we don't get to do that. It's more that we start building a trust in our relationships. I think, that's why we talk so much about how to cultivate these relationships, because the trust that I had was a very deep trust that we could figure anything out. It was not about school or not school. It was about how we could figure out how to meet our needs, how to work together, how to move through difficult situations, how to move through conflict, how to move through things that life threw at us. And that deep trust was just unshakable. Like then when people would come at me with things they didn't like what we were doing or didn't understand what we were doing, I was so solid that I know us, I know our relationships, I know we can figure out what's best. So it's not about a particular thing, again, unschooling, going to school, doing whatever. It's really about that we're so in tune, we figure out, we know what's happening, we work together if we have find a need that isn't being met, we figure it out. So that deep trust, I think, is a part of this too.
Yeah, and I think that trust comes flows so nicely after you can kind of let go of
Yeah.
those comparisons because now, oh, like I can hear my own voice. I can now lean, as you said, lean into the kids. And as you mentioned, Erica, that realization that people are different, that just loses so much weight for other people's shares. And like you said, Anna, nobody's trying to, lie or fake things or anything. It's like they're just excitedly sharing what's they're wanting to share, etc. So yeah, when we can, that's where we can now lean in. And now when we're hearing our voice, and now we can learn so much. We can learn so much about our kids, ourselves, learn the tools and the processes to be in a relationship with them, to figure things out, right? And that is where I remember, like you were saying, that's where we learn the language, right? So that we not feel defensive and also have the language to share if people are interested in learning more. Like that confidence is building and building and building when we're shutting out those noises and now actually leaning in, hearing ourselves, our actual kids in front of us. And instead of just trying to copy other things, we're actually in there learning these kind of tools to be in relationship, to build connection. And that's where the trust comes. It's like, oh, look, we figured it out. We figured it out. Things went sideways and the world didn't end. And we figured it out, just through that experience, for me anyway, just built more and more trust. And the confidence came along with it, right?
Yeah. Oh, I really love the trust part. Yeah, I'm just thinking like, I think back in the old days, I would have thought confidence comes from that I did everything right. And so I can feel good about where I am and what I'm doing because I chose all the correct decisions. And so trusting that there's no one right way and trusting that this is a long game, trusting that there's plenty of time, like those are the things that if I can trust in that, that's going to be what builds my confidence. Because, right, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be things that we think are going to work and then they don't work, or they work for a while and then they don't work. And so that doesn't mean my confidence should be shattered. That just means this is life. And so being confident is more about trusting that we can make it through when things don't go the way that we expect them to, or that, it is this kind of longer game and this kind of, plenty of time view of childhood, which I think is, I mean, that's really kind of radical from the way we grew up. A lot of us grew up, in school and things. It makes it feel like there is definitely one right way and time is of the essence, and you better, check these things off in the correct order at the correct time. And so my trust in our unschooling journey is, it has taken a lot of paradigm shifts in my own mindset in order to get to that place. But I wanted to also bring us to the idea of understanding our why, because I think that's such a huge part of building our confidence too. And it's something that I love. Every time we talk about it on the network, it's always such an amazing, fun conversation to read, just why people came to unschooling. What is the reason that they are doing this with their children? Did they see in their children that brought them here? What happened in our own lives that brought us to these ideas? And so I think when we really dig in, and start asking ourselves these questions, like, why is unschooling appealing? Why are we doing the things we do with our kids? What makes our kids tick? Who are we? What things do we like to do in our lives? Kind of digging down to that why gives us a lot more confidence. And that can be a little confidence boost, when we are feeling a little bit shaky. That's why we always go back to that when people are feeling shaky, like, what is your why? And that kind of grounds you back into that confidence about your decisions.
Yeah, I think that has always been such when I remember to do it, like when I start getting like knocked off, when my confidence is faltering, when I'm wobbling, like that when once I remember that as a tool to help me rebuild things, it is always so valuable because fundamentally there is a reason for this choice in the first place. And revisiting that reminds me, right? Oh, yes, this is why we're doing this thing. And even playing around with it. Like, so what if we weren't doing this thing anymore? Like, that helps me remember because, like you're saying, as things are flowing before, it can start to feel easier, right? And you kind of forget how challenging things might have been before you made these lifestyle changes. And then your confidence gets knocked for a bit and you kind of forget. So going back to the beginning and really steeping in that and understanding why we made this. Oh, yes. Even though this moment seems challenging, even though my confidence is a little knocked around right now, fundamentally, this is the life that I want to live with my family. This is the kind of person I want to be, etc. It just really helps me reground, really. I think that's what it is. And that helps so much with my confidence.
Yeah. And honestly, that's a tool we can use in any realm of our life, because we are often, all of us, making thoughtful choices about how we want to move through the world. And so, right, when something kind of knocks that confidence a little bit, we can just, throw the baby out with the bathwater, like question the whole decision. But I think if we can pause and take a little bit of time to say, okay, but why did I make this decision? And I love the point that you made, Pam, that, it can feel easier. So sometimes we forget because that is so true. And then it just takes that little bit of reflection to go, oh my gosh, we were living in a really difficult time before we made this decision. And look at all the things that have changed. So this little bump is nothing to compare to when we were kind of flailing around, figuring out what worked for all of the personalities and all of the different pieces and all of our brains. So I love that point because I think, again, when we get knocked by something, it just shakes us. And so we just start, okay, what do I change? I need to go back, and just take that time, pause, really soak in why. And I think it can be valuable to write it down, throughout the journey at different times because our whys can change and even the decision can ultimately change. It's not about you have a why, you make a decision, you stay with it forever. But as you tune into the why, you will fine tune the journey, which may involve changing parts of the decision, whatever. But it's so important, I think, to just slow down when you're feeling knocked by something, because then you're going to get your confidence back. And from that confident place, you can all decide if this is still the path we want to take. And that just feels very different than deciding, and then running.
Yeah, I think so. I remember those moments, like as I was going to say especially early on, but I mean you still can
Yeah.
get knocked.
Yeah.
And but that's why I liked understanding our why. Sometimes we talked about remembering our why, but I liked
Yeah.
understanding because like you said, Anna, it can definitely change over time as we learn more, as we gain more
Yeah.
experience with it. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I want. Like, and so revisiting it and like you said,
Yeah.
even writing it down or however your brain likes to like just kind of keep track or keep those things top of mind for a while, it is really helpful just to bring that back top of mind before well, to help kind of recover and build our confidence again. And I think when we bring all that together, I know in my experience, that's when, as my confidence comes back, as I'm remembering why we're doing it, as I've like sunk back into that trust that we've cultivated, I've, let go more of the voices, recognize that people are different and the things they're sharing are great for them. That doesn't mean automatically that they're great for us. Anyway, through all that processes, I really start to find my voice again because that's one of the first things I kind of lose when my confidence gets knocked, right? I can't like share with any enthusiasm because I'm not confident in our choices or how things are going in this particular season. So, I mean, that for me is kind of a sign for me that my confidence is coming back and just having these various tools to help me find my voice again. And I really like that image because it's finding our voice like with the other outside world, extended family, whatever, but it's also finding our voice again, maybe within our family, whatever it is that's kind of knocked our confidence, we can find ourselves again, ground ourselves again. And then that really does, at least for me, help me find my voice again so I can continue showing up in all the various moments of life.
Right. And now I'm thinking it's almost circular in a way, in that if you find that you have lost your voice or you're feeling shaky about your voice, then I'm wondering, oh, is that because maybe I'm taking on other people's expectations, or I'm trying to present something that maybe I don't fully believe or that doesn't fit with my family, or I'm trying to perform, in a way that's what I'm supposed to do. And so then that gets you to start the process again, letting go of the comparisons, letting go of the outside noises, thinking about, okay, how do I build trust in myself and in my kids? And so I love that, because I think from that grounded place of just trusting in your relationships and really understanding your family, you do have a voice. And whether you choose to, shout it from the mountaintops or in a casual conversation or just your own self-talk, which is so important, that you have this strong self-talk of like, look at this, look at what we're creating, excuse me, look at what we're creating together, look at what this life that we have. And so wherever it is, if you're feeling shaky, then run through it again, because you'll get back there as you tune into your kids. And yeah, so I love that piece.
Yeah. Oh, me too. The finding our voice doesn't mean we have to be going and telling everyone about our journey
No.
either. And so I think that's a fun nuance, that finding my voice to me really is that self-talk inner voice. Like that to me is the most important one. And so, just kind of clarifying for myself why I'm doing the things I'm doing, gaining that confidence and trust in my ability to do things, and having that be reflected in my self-talk. That is really where that finding my voice comes from. And then I feel like that kind of grounded, calm, confident self can succeed in any,
Yeah.
interaction, right? It's not like I need to share everything with every person I meet, but I'm feeling good about myself, right? Like I'm feeling okay in my decisions, feeling good. And that kind of grounded, calm energy helps, like Pam, you were saying, in our own families, finding our voice in our own families. I think it makes such a huge difference, with all of the kids' ups and downs, just being able to be, I know that we've got this, that kind of energy just feels so reassuring to them as well. And it just, helps me in conversations with everyone. So yeah, I really love that finding our voice piece. So, anyway, this has been a really fun conversation, and we hope you enjoyed it and maybe had an aha moment or picked up some new ideas to consider on your own journey. And if you enjoy this type of conversation, I think you would love the Living Joyfully Network. It's such an amazing group of people connecting and having thoughtful conversations about all the different things we encounter in our unschooling lives. And you can learn more at livingjoyfullyshop.com. You can just click on community at the top of the page, and we hope to meet you there. So thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.